Hey, for the next 20 minutes, you'll be listening to an inspiring conversation with our podcast guest. Bonus materials are waiting for you in the link in the YouTube description.
Hi, we're joined today by Carl Ruth, the co-founder of Page Optimizer Pro. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me. This is great.
Yeah, really looking forward to it. So you're going to be speaking about LLMs while you're here at the conference, right? So I was having a look at some of the research that you did on kind of why LLMs fail to produce content that actually ranks. Mm-hmm. That, you know, you mentioned that even when it's prompted to be kind of SEO optimized, it reads well, but it just doesn't do what search engines need. Could you maybe give me a bit more information about kind of what these signals search engines are looking for?
Sure.
And stuff like that.
Well, what we did is we're kind of looking for a baseline on the content that LLMs put out. And so in this little study that we did, we asked first for a 1,000-word article on what to see in Rome. And then we asked it for an SEO optimized 1,000-word article on what to see in Rome. And what we found, the most surprising thing was that the LLMs really failed on contextual terms and semantics. You know, like the amount of terms you need to get onto a page to describe what you're talking about, and then semantics of the concept of that. Does Google understand it? And they all failed miserably.
Wow.
And then what was even more interesting is that once you asked for the SEO optimized version, they failed worse.
That's crazy because I know a lot of people kind of take it at face value that, you know, you add in the words SEO optimize, you give it a keyword and boom, it's going to rank.
It knows what it's doing.
Yeah.
What we noticed is they actually did a really good job, most of them, with getting the structure correct.
Yep.
You know, they could give you better sections on the SEO optimized.
Yep.
But they have really no idea what SEO optimized means when you asked it, what does this mean? Which is, I think a lot of people have asked them, how do you optimize? And it can give you a nice little list. But then it doesn't know how to, do that for itself.
That's interesting because you would assume that if it knew how to kind of regurgitate some facts about how to do it, it would know how to do it.
Yeah, not at all. And it was really surprising is that word counts went down. None of them got close to hitting the 1,000-word request. Within SEO and with content creation, you can always go a little above, nobody cares.
Yep.
A little below, people start to have a lot of heartburn. And none of them got anywhere near at that 1,000 mark or above as it should have been.
Yeah, because I always find whenever I'm using AI that I do always have to prompt it, like, please make it longer, please make sure that it's over that, 1,000-word mark, because otherwise it will just give you...
Yeah, exactly right. A lot of people got really upset too when I published this. They're like, well, you have to prompt it. You have to do this. Well, I understand that. But we're looking for the baseline here. Like, what does it understand about language? And is it going to give language that really, as SEOs, what we're looking for in something that can rank? And they were all very, very miserable at doing that. And the real question is, I'm not sure why. I'm not sure why they're that bad, because you would think as a language model, it would understand language.
Yeah, because I was going to ask you, why do you think this happens and why they're not very good at understanding SEO signals? But
when you think about how they work, though, they're really guessing at the words that they think you want to see, right? It's not processing anything. It's not thinking about it. It's not, let me write a better article for you so you can be a better person. It's guessing at the words, and as it guesses at the words, it's really just kind of giving lip service. It's giving fluff to an answer, but not anything that has any substance.
That is true. That is all of the tests that I've done, and with the AI stuff, you have to be like, okay, get rid of the fluff now, please. You can just tell. Is there anything, when it comes to what they're failing at specifically, what would you say are their biggest failures?
Well, it's the consequence.
Yeah.
It is the biggest thing where, let's say, you see all these stories all the time, like somebody publishes 400 AI articles and they put them on their site, and then their site tanks. And they're like, oh, Google doesn't like AI. And I don't think that's the problem. The problem is you put up 400 pages that Google doesn't understand because it doesn't have the contextual terms. Google can't understand the semantics. It doesn't know what this content is, so it devalues those pages, and then by extension devalues the site. So it's not that AI generation was the problem. It was that the content that AI generates isn't anything that Google can understand, and that's going to start to harm your site.
Yeah. And how would you recommend working around that? What sort of fixes would you suggest?
Well, you need benchmarks, and a lot of SEOs just miss this from the beginning anyway, which is the joke that I say where what AI can do is it can help you do things faster. So if you're bad at SEO, it's just going to help you do bad SEO faster. And that's what people are churning out, is just bad SEO, bad content in a very fast way. And so you have to have benchmarks for how many terms need to be in specific places. And if you don't have those benchmarks to begin with, then there's no way you're going to write an article that can consistently rank and consistently rank well based on its on-page signals. So you have to get that first. Like, you have to understand the why of what you're trying to create and have those numbers in mind, an appropriate range that Google's looking for, and then you can give good prompts to the AI to write a piece of content that can rank.
Do you have any specific tips for the marketers watching this on how they can maybe work that out or how they can incorporate that better?
Well, way back in the day, I did it by hand. You can pull out a spreadsheet and you can start to count. On a very simple level, you can look at the most common terms within the content that Google is rewarding. Yep. And then you can do some Olympic scoring, take out the high and the low, and then go with a range based on that, and you're going to write an article that's going to do pretty well. You can get a lot more scientific with it, though, with more advanced tools, but you could do this by hand on your own.
Yeah, no, because I know there's definitely some tools out there, because I've worked on some before, and it's really interesting when you do start analysing kind of the semantics of the top ranking articles and what maybe top positions have compared to the ones lower down, and it's little things that maybe the human eye wouldn't notice straight away, and they're not like, okay, I need.
In the end, you really can't. I mean, you can't do it by eyeballing it. There's just too much going on, and what you notice as soon as you start running more and more reports and looking at more and more, you'll notice that the number ranges change keyword to keyword and niche to niche.
Yeah,
you do need to be specific on the thing that you're trying to rank for.
Yep. Talking about kind of the fact that, we mentioned that adding SEO optimized doesn't do it. It doesn't cut it when it comes to AI. What are the potential risks for marketers who kind of assume that, if they just say, hey, here's a keyword, hey, make it SEO optimized is enough?
It's you're just going to harm your site. That's the bottom line. And that's been shown again and again and again and again on just assuming that the AI knows what it's doing and then publishing right to your site is just a recipe for disaster.
Yep. Completely agree. For businesses that are scaling content creation rapidly and are using AI tools to do so without understanding kind of the negative impacts behind this, what are the tangible and negative consequences they might experience in terms of, organic traffic, ROI, search visibility, that kind of stuff?
Well, the concept you want to be familiar with is centerpiece annotation. What that is it starts off at the page level. Does everything, like Google identifies what this page is about, and it looks at all the contents on there, and does all the content match that concept? And that's where it's going to go off the rails quickly, is because you're going to have content that doesn't meet centerpiece annotation. And then I believe in the last year or so, Google's taken that site-wide. And so, does this whole section match what this site should be about? And then the negative consequences are you paid a lot of money, time, and resources for something that's just ultimately going to be detrimental to your site.
You're halfway through the podcast and still haven't grabbed the bonus content.
I've seen that far too many times, unfortunately. I've seen
again and again and again. But everybody just blames that it's AI content.
Yes.
And that's not the issue at all, because I've got just as many examples of AI content that's crushing it. But it's AI content that's understandable by Google.
Yeah, I have to admit, back in the beginning when it first came out, I was very much the idea that, oh my gosh, AI must be awful. Now that I've played around with it personally, I've got some really good AI content that's actually ranking, and it works really, really well. But I have seen some massive companies that I've worked for, helped with strategies, and just going out with all of this AI stuff. It's not done them any favors whatsoever. And then when they brought it out in different languages as well, we think it's bad in English, or we think that it might not work, you should try and check. It cannot do it. It can't cope with it whatsoever.
For sure, for sure. And, I've always been of the opinion that Google will do things as cheaply as possible. And so I really struggle to think that they're going to spend the money on AI detection. That's an expensive thing to do across the entire web, when all they need to do is just keep with the ranking factors that they have already. And if the content doesn't fall within the acceptable range for those ranking factors, they don't need to worry about detecting for AI.
See, that's the thing as well, and their guidelines are so kind of unblack and white, if that makes sense. Because in one they're talking a lot about, AI content is bad, you can't go out and do that, and then in the guidelines they're actually AI content isn't bad.
Right.
It's how you do it. So it's what?
Which I think leads into, if you do it so that Google can understand it, it's totally fine.
I think so as well, and as long as it's useful. And as long as it, adds value rather than having a massive piece about,
And AI content that's done correctly is still going to go through an editorial process.
Yeah.
A human's going to review it and make sure that it's good. And Google hates automation for the fact that there's no editorial process. So if you're doing it correctly, even though you might start with AI, there's still going to be a human editor, and that's completely within Google's guidelines then.
I have a question for you. Random one that's just popped into my head while we're talking about this. So I come across quite often people saying, well, I've run it through an AI checker and you can't do that or you can't publish that. What advice would you give to people who rely blindly on AI checkers?
AI checks, like, God bless them. But I think, we'll run a piece through and like one thing will say it's completely human, and another will say it's 100% AI, and then you get the range in between. So there's no consistency between these tools, and unlikely there ever will be. And so again, if I'm hitting my benchmarks for my terms, that's all I'm worried about. And I know that it's going to be good after that.
Yep. Yeah, no, that's one of my pet hates. Some things like readability score, I could rant about them.
No, I mean, readability is good, just like, will people be able to understand this concept, but it's not a ranking factor at all. It's just more of like, are we doing this right?
Yeah,
more of a sanity check.
Once you understand how they work as well when it comes to that, like how many syllables there are in words and stuff. And if you're doing something for like, I don't know, on physics or, even in my example, psychology, you can't break it down into smaller syllables because that's a freaking...
Well, that was interesting too about the study, is that almost all the content was college level. So even though it looks like it is easy, like from a perspective of how they do that, it's actually even much, much higher than you'd want content to be anyway. It's not content that I think people can digest easily.
Yeah, no, I think it's all about writing it, to be honest, and how good it is. Yeah, anyway, sorry, completely got distracted by going off on that one. We could go back to the study. Like, you talked about Pop AI in the study getting, better results and stuff like that. What is different about a specialist tool like Pop AI compared to kind of other general LLMs?
Well, it's how we have trained the tool.
Yeah.
And that we run tests on the algorithm constantly. We are tweaking things constantly to make sure that we're providing what Google is looking for in these specific situations, and the LLM simply are not. They're not looking at the SERPs. They're not going in and testing anything. And so anytime we learn something about how the SERP works, that goes into what we're doing, and that's how we're able to create content that's significantly better than, even if you're prompting on your own. I know that this is better than what you're going to do.
That's interesting. So would you recommend, like, I know it's going to be hard because, of course, your product. You want to
I am horribly biased.
Exactly. But the study does show that, you guys do get better results.
You need to use something. Yeah. It doesn't hurt my feelings if you don't use my tool, but you should be using something.
Yep.
And there are several on the market that are very, very good. Obviously, ours is vastly superior to the...
Of course.
but beyond that, you really do need to use something to have a standardized method for checking these things.
Yeah. No, I completely agree with you. When you did your study as well, you measured kind of SEO metrics and went beyond kind of things like keyword use, readability score, LSI terms and stuff like that. Based on your findings, which kind of 2 to 3 of these less commonly tracked or commonly discussed, on-page metrics should marketers be really caring about?
Well, LSI, and a lot of people don't like that term, so you can just call it contextual terms if you like. That is a ranking factor. Variations of your target keyword are a ranking factor. NLP is not a ranking factor, but it's the kind of thing that if Google can understand it, then it'll index faster. So getting your contextual terms not only will help Google understand it, but that is an actual ranking factor, and that's why it's like kind of doubly important in what we're talking about.
That's a good point. And when people are doing SEO and they're going to be using AI tools, what do you think people should prioritize to make sure that, Google can understand the content?
Well, Google's NLP API will show you exactly what Google thinks this content is about. And they'll give you the a salient score. They'll tell you how confident they are in what this content is about. And it's an excellent check to see, like, am I in the race? Because you can look at the scores for what Google's rewarding right now. Are you in that range just on a level of does Google understand this? Now, that's, again, it's not necessarily a ranking factor, but it's the kind of thing that will keep you from ranking if Google doesn't understand it.
Yep. Yeah, because I know that you've mentioned that in, when I saw you speak in Zagreb as well, that you focus a lot on kind of can Google understand it? And I think a lot of people forget about that.
Yeah. And, I mean, it doesn't even have to be actual content for Google to understand it.
Yep.
Yeah. That's the important part, too. It's not writing good content. It's writing words on the page that Google can put together to understand what it's about.
Yeah, going a bit off track, but for those of you who didn't see your talk in Zagreb, do you maybe want to kind of summarize it in a little bit about, how you got your patent, that sort of thing?
Oh, sure. The story that never dies on the very abridged version is just in a competition getting a page to rank number 1, and the page was completely written in lorem ipsum, and but within the lorem ipsum, putting the keyword the right amount of times, putting the contextual terms the right time, putting NLP terms the right amount of time in the right places, and getting that to rank, and then using those concepts. That all comes from the testing that I've done, and then that testing turns into the patent that I have, a U.S. patent. But that experiment in that competition then also got me a Google rule. If you look under automated generated content, it was right after that competition where it says, you can't have a page that doesn't make any sense to the reader but contains keywords.
That's pretty impressive, though, that you've got yourself.
So I might be the only person on the planet that has both a SEO patent and a Google rule for them, which I'll take it.
Impressive.
Yeah, I'll take it.
Nice. And to finish off, given the study, the study that you did concludes that, LLMs can write, but, they don't necessarily give Google what it understands and not very good at optimizing. What would your key piece of advice be for marketers, using AI?
I would go even stronger. Not a very good job. They do a terrible job. They do a detrimental job. It takes a lot more than... And just the baseline, because you got to figure every LLM you're using is starting at a particular baseline. And the baseline is so far below what you actually need that you have to be very aware of that. Yep. It's not just like we're here and we just need to go up a notch. You're all the way in the basement. Yep. And you're not even close to level 1. Yep. And that's the amount of work that you need to get just to get to mediocre before you're even getting to excelling to so that's what you really need to be aware of what's happening right now.
Amazing. And how can people ensure that, AI-assisted content meets their needs and actually...
It's those benchmarks. Yep. Yeah, it's those benchmarks. So use a tool. That's really what you have to do.
Amazing. So thank you very much. That was really, really interesting.
Thanks for having me. This was great.
No worries. Where can people find you if they want to get in touch? And
I'm at pageoptimizer.pro. If the SEO questions are a little too difficult for the support team, those go to me. You can also find me at IMG Courses. My courses are there on on-page SEO and stuff like that, and I answer questions in there as well.
Amazing. Well, that sounds absolutely perfect. Well, thanks again.
Awesome.
And enjoy the rest of the event.
Thanks so much. This was great.
Thank you.